Everybody's giving us thumbs up. Hi, everyone, both here in person and on Zoom. Welcome to our registration frustration event, which can sometimes be a tongue twister, but my name is Kimmy Walker. I'm an academic advisor in our Academic Advising and Transfer Center.
And my name is Kim Stagner. Yes, we're trying to confuse you with two different Kims, but I'm the coordinator of Student Success Initiatives in the Academic Advising and Transfer Center as well.
So our goal today is to walk you all through some of the pieces of registration, to talk about some of the things that are stressful, the things that you should expect, but also just some steps to do, whether you are, I have no idea where to start in this process, or I've met with my advisor, but I need to walk through what are my next steps and what do I do with everything. So our agenda today is, maybe you try clicking. Okay. No? There we go. So we're going to talk about prepping. So what do you do if you just are starting by yourself, and where do we go from there? That'll include some general education, just briefly talking about major requirements and things to look out with that. Setting up your advising appointment, how to make that first contact, preparing for your appointment once it's set, what to do after you've met with your advisor, what are the next steps, and then what do you do on registration day, and then we'll kind of wrap things up. I will let Kim take over with some of those first steps.
Okay. So again, first of all, with prepping your appointment, I think there's two different areas you want to focus on. So the first one, you want to start thinking about your majors. You may have a few in mind. Maybe you definitely know what major you're interested in, but you definitely want to start thinking what is needed for that major. So oftentimes there may be some lower division courses that are needed in the very beginning, your freshman, sophomore year. So again, that's where you want to start doing research. You want to start investigating those requirements. Oftentimes you can do that by going to the undergraduate catalog on the Missouri State website. So in the catalog, it will show the requirements. It will also show what's needed for the program along with general education, but you can kind of get a good idea there. Also, you want to think of that lovely GEP 101 assignment when you did that 4-year guide, maybe. So you may have some options for your major classes there. And then also, I know Kimmy just mentioned this, going through your degree audit, it also shows some of those major requirements too. So start thinking about what's needed there. And then also the general education program. That is something that is required for all students on campus. So you know you're going to have to complete the general education classes. So if it's just kind of going through those, selecting classes from the Gen Ed worksheet, that's going to be really helpful. And if you do not have a general education worksheet, all you have to do is just type in the Missouri State, like the homepage, the search engine, general education worksheet, and you'll find it. So just a few tips on here that I want to point out. On the first page of the general education worksheet, you'll find the foundation courses. And those are classes that we would say to take care of sooner than later. So even on here with English and Comm, it does state should be taken your first year if possible. So if you're in one this semester, maybe consider the other one next semester. Also with English and the math, you won't just automatically get to pick, hey, I want to take this class from those boxes. So there are placement scores. So in Missouri State's, My Missouri State, you'll be able to look at your test scores and see what you've placed into. So even though in here it does state English 110, you may have tested into English 100, which you'll need to take first. Or instead of taking the math general education requirement, you may have to take math 101 first. So again, that's some of that research you want to start thinking about so you know what you need to take. Then on the other side of the general education worksheet, you'll find the natural world area, otherwise known as the science classes. So you will need a life science and a physical science. One must have a lab, and you must choose from 2 different course codes in those boxes. Now the key thing here to remember, when selecting those science classes, it's going to be dependent a lot of times on your major. So oftentimes there's many majors what will state, you need to take this science, you need to take this science. So again, when looking at your degree audit, looking at the undergraduate catalog, you'll be able to see which science classes you'll need to take. There may be other majors where they don't care, just pick and choose based off your interests, okay? Then on the last part of the general education worksheet, there's 2 columns, and really this is where you get to pick and choose a lot of your classes. The key thing here, you do need to choose 4 different course codes. I think that's oftentimes forgotten about. So we want a variety of classes. So we wouldn't want, you know, let's say psychology, sociology, and then from humanities and the arts, you take a music and a music. So again, that would only be 3 different course codes. So you definitely want to be careful there. And I also do want to note under the public affairs area, you will need to take an American history class, 1, and an American government course. Sometimes students think from that box there, you only have to take history or government, but you have to take history and government. Okay? Okay, so after prepping, you want to think about how to set up your appointment. So the first thing that you need to do, you need to know who your advisor is. So just in case you ever kind of forget or you don't know how to get in touch with them, you can always look under the registration status in My Missouri State. Pretty much in the registration status, that's going to cover everything that you need to keep in mind before you register. But in order to get in touch with them, you also you can go into your advising notes, which is located in My Student Records. And in that area, it will actually have a link where you can email your advisor. And this semester with advisors, it may be different. You may have a Zoom appointment. You may have a phone appointment. You may have an in-person appointment. So I know our office right now are doing Zoom appointments. So again, you just want to make sure you email them to see how they prefer that appointment. Okay. Okay, so when to set up your appointment with your advisor. So this is going back under that registration status where again, you can find pretty much everything before you register, including your registration date. So in that area, you'll be able to see the specific date and time. And I think most incoming freshmen, it will be November 23rd at 7 a.m. Yes, I will repeat that, 7 a.m. in the morning. But again, sometimes students may be able to register sooner. Maybe they have dual credit coming in or something like that. So this will give you the specific day and time. So when it comes to setting up your appointment, we always say about 2 to 3 weeks before your registration date. So if you have not set up your appointment, you need to do it now, okay? So there's some offices where it may just take a couple of days, but other offices, it may take a few weeks to get in to meet with your advisor. Okay, also under the registration status, you also want to check on holds. So this is pretty much stating some kind of action needs to take place before you can register. So some of the more common holds we have FF holds. So that is something to do with financial, you know, something that you owe the university and so forth. And maybe tuition or something in that area. So there will be contact information. You can reach out to accounts receivable to see where you need to get that balance. Student success, not anymore. That is something that all incoming freshmen are required to complete. It's a training. You do not want to take care of it the day of your registration. Usually takes at least an hour to take care of. And I would say make sure you do that. And then once you've completed it, double check your registration status to make sure that it's been completed. I know I had a student who did in my office, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is taking a long time. So it took a lot longer than was expected. And then also an AT hold. I know many students were notified about this hold earlier on, but this comes from admissions, and this has to do with a transcript. So again, you may have an outstanding transcript from your high school, or maybe you had dual credit where it needs to be sent from that particular institution. So you definitely want to get that taken care of because sometimes transcripts can take a while to get here. And then also I kind of showed just like an example of what it may look like. You may have other holds on your accounts as well. So you just want to check in with your advisor to go over those holds if you do not know how to get in touch with certain departments or you don't know how to take care of that hold. Okay, you cannot see any holds in order to register, so they must be taken care of. Okay, so now preparing for your appointment with your advisor. So some of you may have already met with your advisor this semester, but just in case you haven't, I've already mentioned the first three. So of course, going over general education requirements, your major requirements, and checking on your holds. Also, you want to make sure you write down any questions you may have. So if it's questions about your major, the gen ed requirements, maybe being admitted into a program, maybe about certain resources on campus. You know, I always like to say we kind of know a little bit about everything on campus. So this is your time to ask. If we don't know the answer, we're going to find the answer for you. Okay. Then next, think about how this semester has gone. So think about the classes you've taken. Think about how that should move forward into the spring semester. I know in just a little bit, you know, Miss Walker, will talk about, you know, again, how you want to take your classes, if it's certain structures, things like that. But again, you also want to think, what are your strengths? So if you're not that great at writing, probably don't take 3 writing classes next semester. Also, you want to consider your academic goals and your personal goals. So talk to your advisor about those goals. So maybe if it's going on to a professional school, maybe graduate school, you may need to get started with things earlier on. Maybe there's a certain GPA you want to meet each semester. Again, talk to your advisor about that. Or maybe personal goals, maybe it's with career-related information and so forth. So again, kind of think about those goals, see how you can be successful and you can meet those goals. And of course, we're here to help you with those.
So you've had your appointment, you came up with a list of classes with your advisor, and now what do we do with it? So as we mentioned, you're meeting with your advisor ideally a couple weeks before your registration date. So you have some time to take action. You have some time to then plan accordingly. So what you're going to want to do is use Trial Schedule Builder, which you will probably used in SOAR, but we'll go over some of the features of it and some tips with it. But what you want to think about is what makes a good schedule. There are some kind of rule of thumbs, and then there's some that are pretty personal to you. So you want to start thinking about balance. It's a really good idea to have a balance of classes and when those classes are. So maybe that is you have mostly seated or mostly blended courses and just 1 or 2 online. If you're someone that really struggles in online courses, maybe we look for every class to have some point in person. Maybe it is just blended once a week, but there's some piece of where you go to that classroom, you get to see that instructor face to face. Or maybe you really thrive in those online classes, so maybe 2 with the rest of your courses is okay to do. So it's good to think about that. It's also good to think about time of day. When are you most energized? When are you most productive and most on? Is that in the morning? Is that when your focus is most fine-tuned and you have the most energy? Is it the afternoon? We don't always have a ton of choice with those class times, but there's at least a little bit, and it's something worth thinking about. You also want to make sure you have breaks. Maybe it's just time to reset, to give yourself time to just absorb whatever it was that you just listened to or just did. Maybe it's time to eat, go back to your residence hall or to a neutral spot on campus. It's good to just think about giving yourself time to sit instead of go, go, go. So we don't recommend having every single course back to back. Try to spread it out throughout the week if you can as well. And also consider other responsibilities. Do you have a work schedule that requires you blocking off time? Do you have practices or other responsibilities where we need to make sure we're thinking about that right as we start this conversation? Consider modes of classes. So I'll show you online to see some of this, but there's little indicators you can use to find which ones are virtual classes solely online, which ones are Zoom, which are blended, and looking at time and a whole bunch of stuff. So you might also consider that. Again, are you looking for those things? Does it matter to you? Do you have a preference? So I'm going to go ahead and move over to Trial Schedule Builder. And so I am starting, make sure I'm still sharing, on my Missouri state, and I'm going to go to the registration tab. And Trial Schedule Builder is here. And we're going to go to spring. And you can ignore this page. We're going to continue planning. I'll remove all mine. So the very first thing I want to do is to go to my campuses. Campuses selects all the different types of classes and types of campuses. Online is a type of campus. Blended can be a type of campus. Springfield is a type of campus. And so it really doesn't matter which ones you have, as long as you make sure you have, I would select online, off-campus, and Springfield for sure. Is that what you have as well? Or what did they mention?
Yeah, sometimes they also just do all of them. So
Sure.
then select all campuses.
We'll do
I mean,
select
there's
all.
not as many on,
Yeah,
you know,
there's not.
And
Yeah, but we definitely want to make sure that online is selected and that Springfield and SSF are. So we'll save that. Now we start to add courses and add breaks. So let's say that I'll start with a break. Sometimes you might have to take these off later, but say that I work typically on Tuesdays and Thursdays starting at 3 p.m. So I'm going to name my break work. And I'm going to say 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. That's generally enough to block it out. Tuesdays and Thursdays. Then I'm going to start adding some courses. I still need writing 1. So you can type these in. Something to know. This course description is unavailable at this time. We don't need the description. You can totally ignore that. I see a lot of students who see this and they pause and they think, oh no, the class is not available. The class is fine. Just totally ignore that. So we add the course and it starts to pop up in our list over here. So I also need math. I'm in Math 101 right now, and I'm planning to take 130 next semester. I'm also interested in business, and I don't have a social science yet, so I'm going to take psychology. Then my advisor recommended economics. And let's see, any other suggestions? What do we want to take?
200?
We'll take ITC 200 for business as well. So I have my 5 classes. I can now click back. What I'm first going to do now, I'm going to go through all these options. If I were to click, we'll ignore that too. If I were to go into my schedules, I have over 1,000. That is nonsense. That is not worth anybody's time. So we want to narrow that down. So I'm going to go through all of my options class by class and narrow it down. Economics is something that I'm not very strong at, so I am going to take these off. And I just reviewed my list. This is not the right math class, my advisor told me, so I can just close it and go back in and add another. They told me math 134, so I'll go back and do that. So writing, I feel pretty confident with writing. Most of these are blended, but I actually really don't want an 8 a.m. So I'm just going to take off all of those and might as well take off some 9:30s. And I'm also going to take off online because I don't want that. And you can go ahead and generate again, but you're going to find, again, we still have over 1,000. So you just want to keep narrowing it down until you get to a spot where you feel comfortable. I'm still taking off those. I'm also not an honors student, so I'm taking off the high 900 numbers. They're also identified with this honors mark. So you'll see what I was talking about in the presentation with your high 800s are online courses. I also see that because it says the location is INET and the campus is online. Then I see my blended courses have 2 different locations. Low 900ers blended. I'm going to meet once a week in person in Carrington and once a week online. So that's how you can kind of also see which courses are in which mode. So we'll do the same with ITC. I feel pretty confident with this. Oh, look, this one's blended. I'll meet in person and on Zoom. I kind of like that, but actually I have some more blended here too. So I'm just going to take out a few more options there. And then I already did that one. Then let's see where we're at. Okay, still over 1,000. Let's go to math. And specifically, I struggle with math, but I'm most productive in kind of middle morning. So I'm going to pick my 9 to 11 a.m. options. All right, so I still have over 1,000, even though I did that. What I'm going to start doing is go through them and just kind of take a look for something that is a little more balanced. So this is too many classes back to back on a Tuesday, Thursday. As you all probably know, Tuesday, Thursday classes are an hour, 15 minutes. That's a lot to do right in a row, especially with subjects like math just sandwiched in there. You want to give yourself more time than that. So something like this, where I have a break every day after math, it's at that middle morning time. I really like that. I'm going to lock it into place. My schedule's just cut in half. And then say that I also like this ITC section, gives me a little bit of consistency across the days. Now I'm down to 54 schedules. So personally, I think this one or this one, both of them look great. I'm going to go ahead and favorite this one so I can keep track of it. I'm just going to call it favorite schedule 1. So that's that little heart up there. And then, let's see. I also like this one. So we'll call this favorite 2. Then I also see that economics is kind of filling up pretty quick. So I'm gonna also add a 6th course so it can be my backup. So I need both economics, so I'm gonna take, well, let's do a different one. I'm going to take African American Studies as my humanities course. That was the backup my advisor and I discussed. So I added that to my list. Those favorites I just made, even though they have different courses, they're always going to be there. So what I can now do is create a totally different schedule as my backup, and they're gonna save. So economics was the one we're replacing. I'm gonna uncheck it, and then I'm gonna generate my schedules again and start going through them. So I think that one looks great, honestly. Maybe let's see if there's a different English spot. And I'm just using my arrow keys to toggle back and forth. This one looks a little bit more balanced instead of having 3 on Monday mornings. So I think I'm gonna save this one and say with African American Studies. So we've made our schedules, we have a few favorites. You can find your favorites right here in that list of schedules. So I have my different ones. So what you can do is come back to these at any point. So as you start to work with it, you can come back and monitor, well, how many classes are available in this? Okay, I have a good amount of seats and everything, so I don't have to worry. You can keep checking this all the way up to your registration date. If you start to see English is getting a little low, then you can always change that. You can go look for another section. You can do anything you want. When you finally decide on a schedule, you can send it to your shopping cart. Only one schedule can go in a shopping cart. You do have to clear it out if you want to replace it. That's why I like leaving things just on favorites until a day or two before your registration date, so that you can keep adjusting as much as you need to without having to adjust 2 different things. So I send it to my shopping cart. And now I'm going to save my cart. Just like you do on anything else, any other shopping services, I'm going to come back to this. It will have registration. You can't click the registration. You can click it, just nothing happens until your registration date. So go through all of these steps, practice this, and make sure you feel comfortable going through all this. So on the morning of registration, when it's 7 a.m. and you're like, okay, I have to go, I'm supposed to rush, you feel super comfortable navigating everything. It's not, where was that? I totally forgot. So that way you just feel more comfortable going through it. So I'm going to save my cart and it just comes back to a neutral page. So then how you actually access your cart is a little bit different. You can go through Trial Schedule Builder and it'll say, hey, you have this in your cart. Do you want to go register for it? And you say, yes, I do. That's what this page looks like. And you say, go back to registration. The other option from My Missouri State is on the morning of, what are you trying to do? You're trying to add or drop classes from your Trial Schedule Builder cart. That's on the next page for spring. And there's your cart. There's all of our courses that we were just looking through. And so that is what you'll do. And then morning of registration, you literally just click register. You know, that was kind of a lot. I hope that gives you a good how to go through each piece. The good thing, as I mentioned, you really can't break Trial Schedule Builder. It won't let you do things until the day of registration. So practice, go through, click things, put things in there. You're also welcome to, if you're really unsure about a schedule and you're trying to balance that out, but you want feedback, ask your advisor for feedback, ask your RA for feedback. They're very informed as well. So don't be afraid to just get feedback on these schedules and ask for help with them. As I mentioned, identify those backups and keep checking on it in case something does close up, then that way you're prepared rather than on registration day, all of a sudden the class is full and you're not sure what to do. Have those backups so you feel ready. And then you can always update and save your cart. To clear out your cart, if you want to make a new one, is on that same add or drop classes link. All right. So then on registration day, we cover where to find your cart. I also want to cover some common errors. So when you go through and you click register, all of your classes should pop up, but you might get a message at the bottom that says registration add error, and it'll have a little red X next to it. And then there'll be a message. That message is really important because it tells us what happened. Maybe it's that the class is full. Maybe you don't have the right prerequisite. Maybe it's a section that's reserved for a specific major that's different than your own. There's a whole bunch of reasons for it. Maybe it's a time conflict that you missed somehow. Maybe you added a backup class at the last minute and didn't realize it overlaps with one of yours. Those are probably the main reasons. You need permission, it's full, there's a time conflict, or there's a prerequisite. If you have that and you're not sure what to do, contact your advisor. However, we really need to know what that phrase said. So when it says registration add error blank, we really need to know what that blank said to be able to help you. Because there's so many reasons why registration can be paused or why you're not in a class, it's really important for us to get that message as well. So be specific when you are reaching out to your advisor, but do reach out to your advisor. That's what we're there for, is to help not only plan the classes, but make sure you get into them as well.
Do you guys have any questions over what we went over? Yes. So you want to check the campuses above where you're adding the classes. And just kind of see, are you including like the online campuses? Are you including like Zoom? Sometimes I just put in all campuses, and then that way, you know, everything's going to be included in there. You may have to be like selecting more out for your preferences, but at least you know all of the classes should show up. So you might want to try that.
The next thing would be to check if the course is being offered this semester. There's actually another way to look at courses. I think a lot of students assume trial schedule builders are only scheduled, but we also have search for classes. This is how you look up classes one by one. It's really good to know if you're looking for, say, English was full and now you just need to plug something in quickly the morning of registration. This is the best way to add one class at a time. So say, is there a certain class you were looking for that you couldn't find? Okay, yeah. And that's one of the ones we're seeing where the campus is making a difference. But you can also double check, is the course being offered, by using search for classes, clicking on the subject, and then we see in intermediate algebra A, view sections, and then we see, okay, it's being offered, there's plenty of them. So that tells us it's in trial schedule builder somewhere, we just got to go figure out where it is.
And since this was brought up too, something you want to be careful with are lecture labs. So when you're taking out certain sections that you don't want, for example, this one only has one lecture option. So you would want to make sure you keep that selected and then just taking out some lab times.
And lectures are identified with a letter, lecture letter. Labs are identified with numbers. So we see here is our lecture, and these are all of our lab options.
Usually you'll see those more with science classes, but hey, Math 101 or Media 120. So sometimes you're not expecting those lecture labs for particular classes.
Yeah, great question. So registration, the sequence is based on credit hours completed, not enrolled in, not like your freshman, sophomore classification. It's the number of credit hours completed. So each person has an individual date. Most often you'll be in a specific group, but it's best to find your own. On the registration tab, you can go to registration status, and you will have a personal date listed right here. Mine says unavailable because I'm not a student, but here we'll say what we showed on the screen. For instance, this one has 7 a.m., November 23rd, 2020. So it's best for everyone to go there, just since everyone has a different amount of dual credit, AP, any of those types of courses. It's important for everyone to go look up their own date or listen to what their advisor told them, because they probably got it from this page as well.
And I would just add to, I don't know, are you okay? I don't know.
Do you want me to go back to
Yeah.
the actual
Just
registration?
Missouri State. Sometimes students are like, well, why is this person registering when I'm registering on this date? So I think it's always helpful just to go to just the Missouri State homepage. And if you go to the Office of the Registrar, and then you just scroll on down, and then I just click on registration. And then here are dates and deadlines, registration sequence. So if they're kind of wondering, how does all that work? You can kind of see freshmen with 0 to 5 hours would register November 23rd. So if they have dual credit, at least 6 hours worth, then you can see that they would register on the 20th. So anytime students are kind of wondering, well, why is she registering on the 20th and I'm on the 23rd or something like that, you can always view this as well. And sometimes there's other reasons why students may be able to register a little bit sooner, maybe for certain accommodations and so forth. But this should be helpful, just kind of explaining why they register on a certain date.